So for the last week, the whole of last week, basically we were focused on the practice of the samadhi empowerment. I want to see if there are any questions. Please do ask. You know, this is the time where we can clarify. And be sure that, you know, we're clear about how to do the practice. A lot of times, what's going on at this level is that we do need to gain knowledge, information, knowledge and information. So as Jasper was asking his question about the three, what I call the three wisdoms, or the three levels of understanding that arises. That which arises through studying or listening, that which arises through thinking, contemplating, considering, and that arises through meditation, through practice of meditation, through cultivation. And that all three are necessary in order to. So at the level of learning and or listening or studying or gathering information, gathering knowledge, that's important, you know. Because if you don't have that, right, then you can't really practice because, you know, what are you practicing? Right? To practice is to practice something. So of course, to practice is to practice something, and to practice something, there's usually a form associated to the practice. So you might have a sadhana, or if it is not a sadhana, you might have a meditation technique. While applying the meditation technique, what you have learned, the information that you have accumulated, the knowledge that you have accumulated, they are somewhere in the background. So while meditating, while chanting mantra, while doing deity yoga, you don't actively like start thinking about that information. So that's one thing you don't do. You don't actively start thinking about that information, right? That knowledge that you have gathered about this topic, this subject. You don't actively think about the details. But nonetheless, the details and the knowledge and the information needs to be present enough so that through the power of practice, which is often boring, but through the power of practice, it's boring because it's like digging a hole, you know. In the sense, it's like digging a hole. But you dig and you dig, then what needs to come forward, right, from the bag of information, from the filing cabinet of knowledge that you accumulated, will come naturally to be planted in the hole that you're digging. So nonetheless, right, studying and knowing and understanding and gathering information, whether intellectual or factual, all those remains necessary. I don't want you, you know, to have the impression, because I've been talking about how mere intellectual knowledge is not enough. Mere intellectual knowledge is not enough. Nonetheless, intellectual knowledge and understanding and information is necessary. So any questions for the samadhi empowerment?
I have a question. In the conversation Friday about the identity of appearance emptiness and the mandala of deities, said the mandala was the way we benefited others, other beings.
Yes.
And getting to that point in the Nairatmya, for instance, with the various goddesses being the aggregates, the senses, the elements, those are the way, that's what we are embodying.
Yes.
The reason we see this as the body is because that's the only way we have to benefit beings.
Yes.
So that's how you got from step 1 to step 4.
Yes.
Is through that process.
Yes.
Okay.
Right.
Thank
and
you.
Also, more specifically, it is said that meditating on this body as the mandala of deities, yeah, is the substantial cause for when you actually become Buddha, that then you have the substantial causes for spontaneously manifesting deity bodies to benefit beings. Yeah. Can't hear you, Judy. You have turned yourself off.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Sort of literally.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So based on this understanding, right, if you simply just meditated on your mind as Buddha, they say, then that is the substantial cause of achieving a state of mind free from suffering. But the substantial cause for appearing in different forms to benefit beings needs to be explicitly created on the level of the path. And Vajrayana method is to directly meditate on these deity forms. And then you say, well, what about Sutrayana? If one took an exclusively Sutrayana approach, right, which is according to Jigten Sumgön, it's like, no, we take all three, right? But then rhetorically, you say, what about just Sutrayana then, right? Then it says that then Sutrayana will take a lot longer to get there because they do not involve explicitly creating the substantial causes for manifesting deity forms to benefit beings. And that's why Sutrayana, it is said, if you exclusively just use Sutrayana methods, it will take 3 incalculable eons. But based on Jigten Sumgön's way of talking about this and understanding, in fact, he will say, actually, if you never move on to, or never not move on, you don't ever move on. If you don't add the final Vajrayana element, in fact, you cannot be Buddha, period. Right? Yeah, from the Gongchik, right? That needs to be clear. I hope it's clear to us. It's saying all 84,000, which of course includes Vajrayana, is necessary to become a complete Buddha. But the point that is most relevant to right now is that meditating on the mandala of deities, but not the mandala of deities as like external theistic gods or goddesses out there, but meditating on the identity of this body of the 5 aggregates to be identical to the mandala of the deities is the substantial cause for future manifesting Buddha bodies. if no more questions for now, which I hope there will be more questions later on this samadhi empowerment, then we return to Gongchik. Vajra statement 6-7. If you have the book, it's page 556. You have the ebook, then depends on how you set up your ebook. The page numbers is different. But if you have the physical book, it's Vajra statement 6-7. Now, reminder that 6-6, right? 6-6. Have we looked at 6-6? I'm a little fuzzy now. I know we looked at 6-5. I think we looked at 6-6. Yeah, 6-6 is
6-6. Yes.
Yeah. Cultivation, like devotion, is the single means, right? It's the only means or the single means. Right? And now 6-7. So 6-6 is saying, devotion. It is certain that the only means of cultivating realization is devotion. And there, between the commentary and the notes by Sobish, it makes clear, right? It's not literally saying that you only need one thing. Devotion. No, it's not saying that. You need so many things, like, right? For devotion to arise, you also need a whole bunch of causes and conditions. So Kyoba Rinpoche's way is always talking about a whole, 84,000, you could say, causes and conditions that are virtues, right, that the Buddha gave, needs to come together. Here, when it says the only means, is saying in that last moment, when final realization of Buddhahood takes place, it takes place in the space of absolute pure devotion. So this is in contrast to what people say, which is, it could be due to this, it could be due to that. It's unclear, or rather, it's indeterminate. There could be so many ways of achieving realization. Principally, it's to address those views. It could be this, it could be that. And so you could say that then 6-6 is Kyoba Rinpoche saying, no, you have to understand it's devotion. It's the final kind of context that you have to arrive at, this final context of absolute devotion. And then the commentary, of course, explains, like absolute devotion to the guru doesn't mean, groveling at the feet of the guru. Or saying, guru, you can have all that I have, you can do what you want to do with me. No, it's not all of those things. Yeah. Even if those things, earlier on the path might actually help, even if those things might actually help. Guru, I will do your laundry for 3 years, especially the really dirty laundry, it may help, but the absolute guru devotion doesn't mean that. Absolute guru devotion, quoting the Hevaja Tantra, it's like, serving the guru to the end is the phrase used, right? The guru puja, serving the guru, seva, serving, seva to the guru to the very end, means to perceive the guru as Dharmakaya. To perceive Dharmakaya as guru. Then of course, that would be the final context for realization of Buddha. Now then, 6-7, 6-8, speaking of realization, then a few other statements are made about realization, this issue of realization. 6.7, view is to be endowed with realization. And this is spoken in response to people who say, great Madhyamaka and so forth is the ultimate view. Yeah, in response to that. So they are prevailing during Gilbert Rinpoche's time, people saying, oh, great Madhyamaka is the final view, or Prasangika, a consequentialist Madhyamaka, that's the finest view, that's the highest view. So here, Gilbert Rinpoche says, no. When we speak of view in this sense, then to have realization is view. And to have realization means to go beyond those views that can be expressed, discussed, debated, fine-tuned, all the tenet systems that you find within Buddhism, and then outside of Buddhism, all the tenet systems. In the works of the Mahasiddhas in India, Saraha, Maitripa, in varying degrees, they criticize all views. They say, including Buddhist views. Ultimately, those are all just missing the point. But in saying that, they are not saying that therefore we don't need those views. They are pointing at how in the end, it is still realization. If those views that you hold don't lead to realizations, and if you mistake the menu for the meal, then you are stuck. So, Chodrat's commentary. The view concerning the ultimate reality that one ascertains, that one comes to a conclusion through teaching philosophical tenets, authoritative quotations, and reasoning is merely a theoretical understanding. Now, these three steps, right? Through teaching or learning philosophical tenets, meaning Vaibhashika, Sautrantika, Chittamatra, Madhyamaka, so on and so forth, and all the different divisions, right? To teaching and learning that through the authoritative quotations, quoting this sutra, quoting that shastra, all that is used. He does that himself, right? Chodrat does that himself. Right? And reasoning, right? Trying to reason, trying to, talk in a reasonable way, rather than yell and scream. All those are generally, what one would use as a Buddhist. But still, they are theoretical understanding. The intention of what we call the arising of a realization that is free from extremes of proliferation in one's mental continuum through practice is the realization of the actual view. Meaning, whenever the Buddha says, like the final view will free you, he's not talking about an intellectual understanding that arises from comparing philosophies, quoting sutras, logical reasoning. He says it's not that. It is that which arises in our heart. Even if that which arises in our heart, later on we will find words described, right, in some text and say, oh yes, that's exactly what is, how it expresses what I have realized in my heart, right? Even that, until it is realized in the heart, the point here, then those are just mere words. So what Nagarjuna wrote, what Chandakirti wrote, of course, it's from their realization that they wrote them. But those words, until we have realized them, those words themselves and the understandings that we're going to get from, studying those words, debating those words, reasoning through those words, they are still just ideas, concepts. Now, our tradition accepts that the essence of the view that one determines by authoritative quotation and reasoning is empty of self and other. Both empty of self and empty of other, both Rangtong and Shentong. These topics have come up by the time of Chodra. Jigten Sumgön's time, this issue is not explicit yet. So if you are interested in this topic of Rangtong and Shentong, there's quite a bit of good research that has been done. I found a few. I think I actually forwarded it to Gloria on Facebook Messenger. Rest of you, if you have interest in this topic, let me know. Whenever I find something, I'll forward to you guys. Then you can become the experts of these areas. You have to report back to us. However, we do not maintain anything like a view that is bound by fetters of grasping as real and attachment to a truth. So I think we did cover a little of this already. So here, basically, what Chodra is saying is that, yes, you can debate these points and all of that, but until, right, the meaning of all these points arises in our own mind, in our own hearts, right? They're all merely concepts and ideas. So to take this point further, the next statement, 6.8, Kyoba Rinpoche says, and as for realization, it is not even reached, sometimes translated as touched. It cannot be touched by even the three grades. So this is spoken in response to people claim that the realization of true reality of emptiness is only surpassed by the three grades. So apparently there were some people who said, this realization of emptiness that you all talk about, actually the three grades have realizations that are even greater than the realization of emptiness. Then Jigten Sumgön says, actually, the realization of emptiness, which is words that Nagarjuna used, Buddha used, he says, that realization is it. And if you want to say that there are other things even greater than that, you have no idea what you're talking about. And so here he says, realization cannot be touched, cannot be reached, even by the three grades. What are the three grades? The great middle way, great Madhyamaka. The great seal, Mahamudra. And then the great perfection, Dzogchen. So these days, one could say, if you look across the different, generally, the different lineages of Tibetan Buddhism, one could say that Kagyu, Geluk, and Sakya sort of mostly followers of great Madhyamaka. And then Kagyu are followers of great seal, Mahamudra. And then Nyingma are followers of great perfection. But here, Kyopa Rinpoche says, as for the realization of Buddha, it surpasses the three grades. So Chodra's commentary. First, even this great Madhyamaka that is free from the four extremes, this twin system of empty of self and empty of other. Here more specifically then, it seems, that he's saying, here, whether you guys identify yourselves as proponents of Rangtong, empty of self, or Shentong, empty of other, and each of these groups, each of you will say, we are the great Madhyamaka. He says this twin system, or even the systems that say we combine both, he says, even this does not reach the manifest realization of the mind. So then he quotes Samadhi Raja Sutra. Existence and non-existence are extremes. Likewise, pure and impure are also extremes. Therefore, having abandoned such extremes, neither should the wise one dwell in the middle. And so even the middle, as in the great middle way, should not be a place for you to hang your coat on, so to say. Then as for Great Seal, he continues, so the Kagyu and their Mahamudra, which maintains that the original state of the fundamental nature of all phenomena is luminosity and emptiness, does not reach the manifest realization of the mind either. So in the Sanjayagata, it says, even though he thinks the skanda is empty, the bodhisattva indulges in characteristics and lacks the faith to abide in the unborn nature. So this quote is a little, I think, more obscure. Here, I think it has something to do with, it's pointing out like, if you have this intellectual understanding of the Mahamudra, right, and you're still lost in characteristics, and then you don't have enough conviction to abide in the unborn nature itself, which is the approach of Mahamudra. With faith, with conviction, with devotion, you stay with the unborn nature rather than get kind of misled by appearances. So he says, even if you have these ideas, oh, it's all empty, but if you don't have enough faith, conviction to remain in the natural state, then you cannot reach the final goal. Even great perfection, grasping appearances as mind, saying all phenomena are such that one cannot perfect them any further because it's perfect already. Nothing at all goes beyond that. Also does not reach the manifest realization of the mind. So Pamodrupa says, the new translation period, meaning the Kadampa lineage, Kagyu lineage, Sakya lineage, has the 4 Tantra classes. The ancient translation period has the 9 vehicles, meaning the Nyingma. The pure surface level of truth includes the 10 bodhisattva stages. The example of great perfection is like the great Garuda. The example of great seal is that which shows that it cannot be illustrated. But if one's understanding is illustrated by examples, it is only constructed. So here, equally, he says, Dzogchen, great perfection, likes to say it is like a great Garuda. And then Chakchen, Mahamudra, likes to say, it cannot be illustrated. He says, the use of illustrations, the use of examples, as long as we are still using that, they are constructed, meaning, again, they are ideas and concepts. So Chodra goes on, what is the manifest realization of the nature of mind, the absolute truth of luminosity, which is different from these 3? It is as follows. Since these 3 grades above, which do not go beyond the mentally fabricated, possess the apprehending mode of being great, and are to be apprehended through examples and words. So since these 3 grades above constitute mentally fabricated emptiness, they do not even touch the manifest realization of the mind. Here, the manifest realization of the mind is beyond mental fabrication, free from an apprehending mode, and beyond the spheres of examples and words. Acharya Shantideva says, the absolute is beyond the sphere of the proliferating mind. The proliferating mind is held to be relative truth. What is beyond the proliferating mind is established as fresh, unfabricated, and unconstrained. Kotalipa said, this fresh, innate, absolute nature is the Mahamudra that is beyond the proliferating mind. Moreover, Saraha said, ordinary consciousness awakens in the middle of the mind. When one has purified the sixth sense consciousness, bliss is without end. So it goes on, to quote the various sources. Long, commentary. The gist of it really is, as long as we hold on to any system conceptually, instead of practicing the systems given, then it's not it. So don't misunderstand Kyoba Rinpoche. He's not saying Mahamudra is not effective. He's not saying Dzogchen is not effective. He's not saying Maha Madhyamaka, Great Madhyamaka, is not effective. Insofar as we relate to any and all of these three as methods to be applied, then, of course, they can lead to the realization that is not mentally fabricated. In other words, if we mistake the learning and the thinking, right? The three wisdoms, remember? If we mistake the learning and the thinking to be the realizing, then we will be stuck. Then we will be stuck. If you're interested in the ins and the outs of, there are larger kind of references to these statements. Sakya Pandita has some opinions about this as well. So then Sobish brings up some of these discussions. I don't know if it's necessary for us to get into that, since not all of us have this level of interest in the intellectual debates in Tibet. But let's see if you have some impressions you want to share or some questions. Yeah. Is this the profound silence or a silence of mere emptiness? Buddhists are said to have the lion's roar. When they speak the Dharma, they silence all jackals and hyenas. But then in one teaching in the Vimalakirti Sutra, Vimalakirti's lion's roar was silence. So that's said to be equivalent of the Buddha's lion's roar. So I'm not sure if our silence right now is Vimalakirti's style of, in awe and the presence of Kyoba Rinpoche's lion's roar, or, it's the silence of completely stunned and stumped and don't know what to say. Lots of these quotes are given in here, all to me at least. I think in some ways it's funny, because then like you read all these quotes, then you're like, wait, this is like a lot of words, when it says these words can trap you. Yeah. So I have to admit, some of it, like, but you have to understand that Chodra is needing to respond in using reasoning and quoting authoritative scriptures, because there are those who dismiss Kyoba Rinpoche's statement as nonsense. There were those who know Gongchik, and they're like, these statements, they are meaningless. They are said by someone uneducated. And so Chodra has to show, like, no, this is not the ramblings of an uneducated yogi, but that through quoting scriptures and through reasoning, he can show, Chodra can show you that these statements actually has salt to them, so to say, But for us, I think, since we're not coming from this position of like, needing to be impressed by, these are not words of a madman, then for us, I think more the focus would be like, what does this mean to me? What wrong view can it correct in me? What particular aspect of wrong view that I have picked up, that can be improved, that can be changed, that can be purified, that can be dispelled through these statements. And that's my general approach to reading. Another level of reading that would be to get into the various debates that were going on. And there's value in that, because then you will see the more subtle points being made. But then it's not easy to go in that direction. So I'm not going to go in that direction in the class that we have. Yeah. 6-9, that listening, reflecting, and practicing, right? Kyoba Rinpoche says, the emptiness of studying, reflecting, and practicing contains traps and sidetracks. The emptiness of studying, meaning the emptiness that you think you have understood from studying, from reflecting or contemplating, and from meditating or practicing, whatever the emptiness, right, that you think, oh, now I understand emptiness, he says they have traps and sidetracks. But this is not like, the Buddhist devil creating traps or sidetracks, but it's just you navigating through this. You need to be aware of these misunderstandings. Yeah? There's a question? Yes.
Yes, I want to ask about that. Which is the risk between this idea, the emptiness?
Which is what? Sorry?
The risk
Uh-huh.
if we attach with this idea, the emptiness.
What is the risk? Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Oh, the risk of like being attached.
The confusion mental.
Yeah. So, well, first of all, realization of emptiness is the final, is the most important, because realization of emptiness, you become Buddha, right? So then any misunderstandings of realization will continue to keep us cycling in confused existence. So that's the first point, right? Any confusion related to emptiness will keep us in samsara. So that's the risk in that sense, right? The more specific risks related to emptiness, Nagarjuna, who greatly taught about emptiness, people often quote Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna says, this teaching on emptiness, this understanding of emptiness, if misunderstood, it's more dangerous than grasping a poisonous snake, a cobra, meaning it can destroy you. There he is talking about nihilism. If you think, oh, since everything is empty, nothing matters. Very dangerous. Oh, since everything is illusory, cause and effect is also illusory. And if cause and effect is illusory, why should I care whether I'm creating virtue or vice? Doesn't matter. Oh, I have realized emptiness, so whatever I do, will not have karmic effects anymore. Very dangerous. So, in fact, somewhere, Buddha says, between the dangers of nihilism and the dangers of essentialism or eternalism, right, the other extreme, the middle way is said to be the middle way free from the two extremes. One extreme is nihilism, the other extreme is essentialism or eternalism. He says, between these two extremes, if you're going to have one, better to have eternalism problem than nihilism problem. Nihilism problem will bring about more suffering, he says. In fact, majority of spiritual traditions are more eternalism. God is eternal, the soul is eternal, there's an ultimate purpose for all of this, intelligence, innate intelligence, and all those various forms of basically eternalism. Things are fixed. So clearly, it's saying those are actually less dangerous than nihilism. Nihilism these days, modern materialist secular philosophies, kind of nihilist, a lot of them. This is it. This is the only life. After that, there's nothing,
Gracias.
Yeah. So then emptiness is identified because, not just because it is particularly dangerous, which it is, because emptiness can be misunderstood as nihilism. Yeah? But emptiness is specifically highlighted here because the ultimate realization of a Buddha is the realization of emptiness. So if you want to substitute the word emptiness here, you can say, you know, the final realization that makes you a Buddha. If you only understand it from studying, from reflecting, and from practicing, you know, or so it's saying, you know, again, it's not saying that you don't study, you don't reflect, and you don't practice. It's saying, even as you're studying, reflecting, and practicing, you have to watch out for how easily you can stray, you can get lost. Because this is said in response to people who claim that those realizations that arise from listening, reflecting, and practicing are the final realization. And he says, no, no, no. Even when you have a very firm conviction from studying, say, emptiness, you know, sometimes you can get that, you know, you study the words, you know, in some class on emptiness, you know, and you read, you know, and then you're like, wow, this is like, and you think, oh yes, I have the realization, you know. Then maybe your teacher of that topic also to encourage you, say, yes, yes, you got it, you know. Here, Gilbert Rinpoche said, be careful. Be careful. You might have actually been sidetracked.
I have a few comments. One,
yeah.
It seems to me that the intellectual side, it means nothing unless the action in your daily life conforms to the teaching. So to me, my imperfect understanding is matched by imperfect conduct.
Yes.
And the more you have real understanding and belief, then your conduct is also going to grow and be more in conformity with Buddha.
Yes.
So ultimately, I feel like if you really understand emptiness and you really have compassion, then you're going to act like a Buddha, because the logic and truth of it is compelling. If you have conviction, then you're going to act like that.
Right. Right.
So I have a similar attitude towards the idea of devotion. Not to flatter you, but to me, devotion was exemplified when the Dalai Lama says yesterday, please do 1,000 mantras because I'm requesting.
Right.
And most of us would think, oh my God, 1,000 repetitions. How am I ever? But then you showed us how to do it.
Right.
But the point is that you were devoted because you actually did what he requested.
Yeah.
So to me, a lot of it boils down to the practice of what are you really doing.
Right.
And when your understanding and belief is perfect, then your conduct is going to be perfect.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. The understanding, right, and the conduct has to go hand in hand. And so the Dalai Lama's teaching also, right, the 8 verses that I took some out. He made that point, you know. So he said, you know, like you need, you know, like the post meditation is actually where it is more important. Even if you can remain in meditative equipoise on emptiness on your meditation cushion for 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, and you feel really good and you feel really one with everything, then you get up and you start yelling at people, you know. Then what's the point, you know? Right? The training on the cushion is so that off cushion, you can more authentically or more authentic, not to, you know, sometimes in the West we say, you know, you have to be true to yourself, you know. Yeah, you know, maybe good for mental health, but not necessarily good for getting out of samsara. Getting out of samsara, being true to yourself, doesn't necessarily work, right? Getting out of samsara, you have to be true to what? To be true to the way things are, the fundamental nature of things. right? So, sometimes we have to be critical, when we say, oh, be true to yourself. Yes, yes, might be good for mental health. And maybe if my mental health is not so good now, I will temporarily take the mantra, embrace the mantra, be true to myself. So yes, next time I gather with family, I'm going to speak my mind. So I will be true to myself, right? Oh, feels good, right? It's okay. But don't mistake that as, oh, this is what the Buddha taught. No, the Buddha did not teach that. There's a lot of things that are temporarily good that we might have to do, right? Just to give us some space, not to feel so tight, right? But also need to see clearly, is that what the Buddha taught? No, not really. Or yes, that is what the Buddha taught. So next time we'll look at 6-9, because there Chodra gives, like the 4 ways of being trapped and being sidetracked. So 8 altogether. To be trapped in the fundamental nature of knowledge objects, to be trapped in sealing, to be trapped in the antidote, to be trapped in the path. Then the sidetrack of the desire realm, the sidetrack of the form realm, the sidetrack of the formless realm. So 7 actually. 4 traps and 3 sidetracks. Sidetracks means, be led to somewhere else. Trap means being stuck. 4 ways of being stuck, 3 ways of being led somewhere else and thinking, oh, I have arrived. So very interesting. Yeah. So we can look at that and see what we can take aside from the debates that he has to address, right? There are 2 things really. There are the debates that Chodra has to address. Part of his job to kind of defend the integrity of these teachings, he has to answer those debates, those points raised. Since we are not training to be Khenpos, we don't need to go into that too much. The larger point of Chodra's commentary is how to apply in our own practice. So from that perspective, it's good to look at, potentially how, when we do studying, reflecting, and practicing of meditating, and whatever understanding that we have, how can we avoid being stuck with that understanding or being sidetracked? Took the wrong exit, in other words, on the highway to enlightenment. Took the wrong exit and kept going, And then if you are a guy, you will not ask for directions. You're like, I know where I'm going. And then you keep going until you run out of gas. Then you're on the side of the road waiting for something to happen. So we continue on Wednesday. Yeah. And you all have a good day. You all have a good evening. Changju Semcho Rinpoche Ma Ge Ba Na Ge Gyurche Ge Ba Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Gong Ne Gong Du Pe War Shu.
Thank you. Thank you. Blessings.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Gracias.